Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us once again for our bi-weekly guided meditation and Dharma Talk live stream. So this is our first live stream back since we returned from our trip to Cambodia. Last month we were gone the entire month of June, and so tonight's going to be a little bit on the informal side. Tonight's Dharma Talk will be a little bit on the informal side. Just some Dharma lessons that we learned during our time with the monks and with family and other events that transpired, during the month of June. And so, again, welcome and thank you. And so today is July 7th, 2025, and it is a few minutes after 6 p.m. here in the Central Time Zone in the United States, where we are live streaming from. So thank you. So just a brief announcement, our aspirant pathway. If you're looking for a way to help ease suffering and nurture good qualities and wholesome qualities within you and others, something you may want to consider, right? Our aspirant pathway. And you can find out more information directly on our web page under continuing your journey. And there's no financial cost or anything. It's just time, learning with us, taking classes, and it's a 6-month probationary period for you to see if maybe you would perhaps like to advance, to the next level after that. So it's in our tradition, in our Blue Lotus. And so you're welcome to explore that option if you like. And then next week, our teen retreat will begin. And so a full overnight week stay here at our center for teenagers, and where they can learn, mindfulness. You're familiar with how mindfulness has helped you in your daily lives, but our teens are especially in need these days with all of the challenges that face them. So if you know any, or you yourself happen to be a teenager, right, you're certainly welcome to register for that. It's a week long. It's free. It doesn't cost anything. Meals are provided and so forth. Plus, there'll be other activities, that you can certainly participate in. And so let's go and take our next step into the 3 jewels. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. Sathu. So very well. And so tonight's topic, again, kind of informal, just some Dharma lessons that we learned during our time over in Cambodia. And let's begin for returning visitors. Usually our guided meditation, right, certainly ties into our Dharma talk, and this one is no exception, right? Strengthening community, right, which is really important. Important that we have solid communities where we live to help with our Dharma practice. Right? Remember that mindfulness is not in isolation, right? It's about connecting with the world and building a good, solid, compassionate environment, community that we live in. And so tonight's guided meditation is strengthening our community. And so let's begin by taking a moment to settle our bodies into a comfortable position. Excuse me. You may close your eyes or keep them slightly open with a soft focus, looking downward a few feet in front of you if you choose. Breathe in. Pause. and breathe out. And then as you sit there, you're certainly warmly invited to allow a half smile to rest on your face as well. Lift your spine and allow your shoulders to soften. And soften your belly as you continue settling in. Breathe in. Pause. And breathe out. And let's meditate on strengthening our community. In the Three Jewels, the Buddha highlights the importance of taking refuge in the Sangha. Most of us are not monastics, so we may take refuge in our community. And too often we focus on our individual self to overcome obstacles and difficulties. When we consider that view with an open mind, we understand how harmful that may be. It increases stress, anxiety, and uncertainty. Instead, we must learn how to nurture our community for the benefit of all. Breathe in. Pause. And breathe out. To strengthen our community, we must begin by looking inward and lowering our ego from one of self to one of outside unity. Just like you want to help others, begin to realize that others want to help you. Helping one another is developing empathy and compassion. And strengthening our community also involves us interacting with others warmly. We must nurture being extroverted. We may simply begin by talking with our neighbors, offering to host a meal, or picking up something from the grocery store are wonderful ways to nurture new relationships. From there, Perhaps consider joining some form of in-person social groups, a book club, a coffee club, or a board game group may be options. Breathe in, pause, breathe out. Remember, practicing mindfulness and walking the middle path is not about isolation. It's about awareness of self and others. And recognizing your suffering as well as the suffering of others. And strengthening our community is a wholesome way to ease this suffering. Go ahead to begin to open your eyes slowly and to reorientate yourselves to your surroundings before you move around. Very good. So some of the lessons that I really learned about being, or when we were in Cambodia for the month. Again, we were with different family members and monastics as well, learning and traveling through different parts of Cambodia, all the way from Phnom Penh to the mountains, up to durian farms, rambutan farms, and so forth, all up in the mountains, all the way back down to the beach, to the oceans, to Conco Islands, and so forth. And what I really picked up on is the sense of community that every village, every small town, every small little group of people fostered. And my first witness or experience, you involved a young lady who, she's like only 18 and 19 years old, who was involved in an automobile accident, and her hip was needing some surgery. And she was a family friend. One of my brother-in-laws, a friend of their families, and she's an orphan, right? So she, an orphan, right? No mother or father, and she was staying with one of the in-laws, and she needed a hospital visit, right? A hospital stay for surgery. And so, I didn't think much of it other than, okay, this poor girl needs, some surgery to correct, whatever needs to be corrected. And a few days later, we went to the hospital to visit her and to check up on her, to make sure that, things were okay with her. And I didn't think much of that either, right? It's what we would all probably do, right? Visit someone who was in the hospital. But as I walked in the room, there was another lady who was in the room with her, and she was helping her out, fluffing up her pillows, giving her, something to drink and eat, and so forth, and just generally, there to support her, with anything that she may need, between the times that the doctors and maybe the nurse come to check up on her. And leaving, I asked my wife, I was like, who who was this woman. I thought maybe she was a nurse or something along those lines. And wife just tells me, he's like, no, she's just a member of the village of where this young lady resides. And my wife, Somali, goes on to further explain that it's that's common practice when someone in the village is in the hospital, a member of their family or their community or their village stays with them in the hospital the entire time, supplementing doctors and nurse visits. So someone is always there to make sure that this person is cared for, with whatever that they need, between those doctor and the nursing visits, nurse visits. And I thought that was just really wonderful. It shows the strength of a community. And then some of you may have seen shortly thereafter, I myself had to go to the hospital, right, while I was in Cambodia. So a little bit of high blood pressure I was sick. I had the flu. Go figure, right? Go overseas and, you get the flu for a few days and compound that, with some elevated blood pressure. The doctor, very firmly told me I was going to stay in the hospital. And same thing, for me. Certainly my wife stayed with me the entire time, to make sure I was okay. But so many other members of the community, right, and family and so forth came to visit, drop off food, make sure I was okay and everything. So just that type of support, that that community support, is very prevalent. And that's what builds bonds. That's what makes people feel safe and well taken care of. Right? And again, just to kind of even highlight back onto that young lady stay, she did not know who this person was. Even though it's a small village, what they live in doesn't mean you know everyone. She didn't know who she was, beforehand. She came to take care of her. And in times of funerals, so we were there. Sadly, um, my wife's father passed away. Shortly before we arrived, and so the funeral service for like the first week that we were in Cambodia was, at her house, took place. And so again, family members and community members, whether the people know you or not, always dropping by, make sure that, the family is well taken care of, make sure there's food and so forth. So donations as well, offering of money and so forth to make sure that, any financial needs are taken care of, whether it's, for the monks or for, um, funeral needs, that, just occur, whether it's flowers and so forth. So the community steps up and really supports, those family members during that times of, of sadness, to try to help ease some of that suffering. And so imagine, if one of your family members or loved ones pass away and just a stranger comes up to you, right, and offers their support and, maybe, $5 or $10, whatever it is, to just help out, to make sure that, you're recognized and you're cared for and acknowledged. So I thought that was really nice as well. And just the neighbors and villages, just as a whole, waking up each day and going outside and just watching the kids play and um, different family members support one another, whether somebody's riding a moto or something like that, the little scooters. Maybe they get into a little, you know, they drop their bike or, something like that. And neighbors will all run out to help to make sure that they're okay and so forth, whether they know them or not, or, whatever it is, making sure that, those bonds are developed and nurtured. And I thought that was one of the most wonderful aspects of the trip that I got to see and experience firsthand as well. Wherever we traveled, didn't matter whether it was the cities, the countryside, or the ocean area, the beach areas, and so forth. I noticed the generosity of all the people, whether they are extremely wealthy or financially, or whether they were certainly of limited means in that sense. Everyone that I came into contact with, or even just experienced or witnessed from a distance, was generous. Generosity is overflowing in Cambodia between people. It knows no boundaries. And these aren't, and I'm not just referring to like wait staff or, people in the service industry where you would expect them to be, generous in that sense. Just everyone that we came into contact with. And again, even me witnessing from a distance was, again, overflowing with generosity. And it's the mindset of the people. And it's a beautiful mindset for a whole country to have. Sure, people want to get ahead on their own, right? Like anybody, have goals and desires and dreams and so forth. But those goals and dreams and desires don't involve stinginess, selfishness, or greed to even some extent. And then the wealth versus poverty, right? Comparing the wealthy to the poverty-stricken areas. And when I think about that, it really involves, another way to say that what I kind of really want to say is that they were probably, the whole country has got to be the wealthiest country, or one of the wealthiest countries in that sense, removing financial aspects. When you have such a whole country that has strong community, caring for one another, that's wealth. So there are no people who are poverty stricken in that sense. But when it comes time to the financial side, the other aspect of the wealthy families, they do look out towards the people who may have limited means. I experienced firsthand multiple occasions of very wealthy individuals just making individual contributions to individuals. Not buying, not handouts, just sharing. Because the idea is that, or the mindset is, people who are poor and struggling that could be or was that wealthy person in a previous life. And so understanding that you may be well off currently, but that situation could change instantly. And so by sharing what you have, right, you help uplift others, not hoarding, and all your money just, for your own self. It's not saying that, they're giving away $1 million to everybody, but they were, certainly just, walking by and see someone or whatnot and make an individual donation. I thought it was really wonderful, right? Because the idea is that everybody's situation is impermanent. You may be poor and destitute right now, but 20 minutes, an hour, a week, a year later, that may change and you may be, very well off. Or the other way around. If you're very wealthy, a week, a month, a year later, you may not be so wealthy. So they share to uplift. And throughout the whole time that I was there, the people were joyful. No arguments. I'm sure arguments happen, certainly didn't visit like all 30 or 16 million people, did not do that. But, there's just a joyful feeling, wherever you go, people wanting to share. People are happy. People want to share with you just whatever their daily lives are. We visited a rambutan farm. If you ever seen those fruits they're red and they kind of got those hairy growths on them, you peel them apart and there's a really delicious fruit inside. Or the mangosteen farms, same areas. And just, the farmer, and his wife that were there, just very delighted to show us everything that they had. Right. And they were not wealthy, in that sense. But again, the wealth comes from the joyfulness, the compassion, the empathy, right? The sharing, the community that individuals, or that the country, really, really has. I think that's a sign of true wealth. I no longer consider wealth finances, in that sense. Spiritually, they are very wealthy. And then just the whole Buddhism, it's their national religion, in Cambodia. And, the majority of people, during those ceremonies, whatever the festival is, or the holiday is, people partake. It's not like sometimes, in America, where someone may attend church on Christmas and Easter, right? We were those people back in the day, right? We would just attend Christmas and Easter. The ceremonies, the festivals, people, they go to the pagodas and they participate. It's important to them because that's how they earn merit. That's how they give back to the community and to the monks and so forth. And so certainly there aren't ceremonies and everything every day. So even in a daily aspect, that the monks walk around on their morning alms rounds. And I remember several mornings, just sitting with our family and the monks are at the door, right? And we would go and make an offering of, either food or sometimes monetary offerings. And they put it in their bag or in their alms bowl. And so there's a daily reminder, a daily influence of how important Buddhism is in that country. And it's like that, not just in Cambodia, but in Vietnam and Laos and Thailand as well. And they're very respectful towards the Buddha. Very respectful. A lot of times when we see things in the U.S., you may find just a Buddha head, right? You won't find that over there. If you're going to find a Buddha, it's going to be the entire figure, not just the head or hands and so forth. So they're very respectful. That's it's wonderful to see, right? They don't take it, as some fleeting or minor aspect of their life. And going to the pagoda, right? And so that's where the monks stay, to the pagodas, and that's where the people go. Those are the big temples, and there can be, so in Cambodia, if you go ahead and Google it if you haven't seen it, but the silver pagoda, right? Big one in Phnom Penh, but so there were some very ornate ones, and we actually visited one that was just opened. So got to participate in some of that ceremony of cutting the string. So sometimes when the pagoda, or not sometimes, all the time when the pagodas are newly opened, they have string that's wrapped all around. So people try to cut it, and so sometimes you'll see, like on this, you'll see like the white strings that people wear, and oftentimes they may come from a new pagoda that was opened, and they wear them for good luck and good health and so forth. So they're very respectful over those pagodas as well, and it's a kind of just like a church in that sense, where people meet for community, right? It's a meeting place, sharing ideas and meeting with friends, and they have festivals there and so forth. It's kind of like, sometimes maybe in the church parking lot, there may be a carnival or something like that, but no carnival over here, at the pagodas, but, they have a lot of festivities and good times as well. And then again, with the monks, the monks are very prevalent. Every single day, you will find monks from all ages. Right? You will find very young monks, kids that are probably 6 or 7 years old, all the way up into the 90s. And it's just wonderful to see that, people wanting to walk that middle path and so forth. And again, the monks don't have to stay there, right? If there is ever a time that you want to say, that you maybe become a monk, and maybe you decide to leave, that way of life, you can certainly do that as well. But there are monks play a very important role in daily life in Cambodia, and it's really wonderful to see. They're very well respected, very well revered. They are leaders of the community in that sense. And so again, during the funeral for my father-in-law in the home, the monks came, each day, and they chanted and performed the rituals and ceremonies and so forth, that would be expected. And so it's an important, very important facet of life. And again, that would not just be in Cambodia. That would also, the monks and so forth, that would also be in, again, like in Vietnam and Laos, Myanmar, Thailand, and so forth. And so those are just some of the lessons that I'd like to share, that I'm sharing with you right now. And they'll be more in depth, as different ideas and ways that I want to share with you with these lessons maybe in a different different fashion throughout the year, will take place. And so it's just a little reflection time. Again, like I said, a little bit more on the informal side for our return Dharma talk with you all. And so our next talk is on July 21st, July 21st, and that will be understanding your ideas and concepts and notions for right view. Right? It's important to have right view, and as part of the Noble Eightfold Path. And so identifying and really understanding what are, our ideas and concepts and notions, whether they are societal, cultural, or even based on experience. But reflecting on those ideas, concepts, and notions so that we can nurture right view. Again, thank you for joining us this evening. We started a few minutes late, but I appreciate your all patience and sticking and sitting with me. And so thank you for coming, and we wish you many blessings, and we will see you again on the 21st.